Mia Davis worked at a famous restaurant in downtown New York City. It was one of those places where the floor was polished like glass, and the walls were filled with photographs of rich and powerful people who dined there. Mia had worked there for 2 years. She was young, polite, and hardworking. Every customer liked her because she served with kindness and never complained. Even when the work became hard, she lived in a small apartment with her younger brother, Michael, who was in college. Her dream was to save enough money to grow her small consulting company that she had started from home. She studied business in the evenings and worked long shifts to pay bills. That morning, Mia left her apartment early. The city was cold, and the wind blew across the tall buildings. She carried her work shoes in a small bag, wearing sneakers until she reached the restaurant. Her manager, Mr. Harper, greeted her with a tired smile. "Busy day ahead, Mia," he said. "We have a special guest today, Mr. Charles Renford." Mia had heard that name before. Charles Renford was a millionaire businessman. His company, Renford Holdings, had invested in hotels, tech companies, and several startups. He was known for being strict and impatient. Staff whispered stories about how he treated waiters and clerks like they were invisible. Mia listened quietly and simply said, "I'll do my best." By noon, the restaurant was full. Businessmen discussed deals over coffee, couples laughed softly over lunch, and the smell of roasted chicken and bread filled the air. Mia moved quickly from one table to another, refilling glasses and clearing plates. Her smile never faded, even when her feet ached out. Then the manager signaled her to serve table 7. That was Charles Renford's table. He sat there in a dark suit, tapping his finger on the table impatiently while looking at his phone. 3 of his friends sat with him, all talking loudly about money, cars, and business trips. Mia took a deep breath and approached with her usual calm. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. May I take your order?" she asked softly. Charles didn't look up. "We've already ordered." "Bring the drinks," he said coldly. "Yes, sir," Mia replied, still polite. When she returned with a tray of orange juice and water, she carefully placed the glasses on the table. But as she reached for the last one, a guest's bag brushed against her arm, and a napkin fell to the floor. Mia quickly bent down to pick it up. Charles glanced at her and smirked. "Clumsy, aren't you?" he said loudly. His friends laughed. Mia straightened and gave a small smile. "Sorry for the delay, sir." He picked up his glass of juice, turned toward her, and in a careless moment of arrogance, tilted it forward. The cold liquid splashed across her clean white uniform. The entire restaurant went silent. Every eye turned toward her. Charles's friends froze. One of them even whispered, "Charles, that was too much." But Charles laughed slightly and leaned back in his chair. "Maybe next time she'll be more careful," he said. Mia stood still, the orange juice dripping from her sleeve. Her cheeks burned, but she didn't say a word. Inside, her heart was pounding, not with anger, but with disbelief. She took a napkin and gently wiped the uniform. "I'm sorry if I disturbed you, sir," she said calmly. Her voice was steady, not shaking. The silence in the restaurant grew heavier. A few guests looked uncomfortable. Some whispered, others looked away, pretending not to see Dotmer. Harper, the manager, rushed over. "Mia, are you all right?" he asked in a low voice. "I'm fine," she said quietly. Charles waved his hand dismissively. "No harm done," he said, as if nothing had happened. Dotmer. Harper turned red with embarrassment. "Sir, please, that was uncalled for." Mia gently stopped him. "It's okay, Mr. Harper. Please don't make a scene. I'll clean it." She walked away toward the back of the restaurant, her shoes leaving small wet marks on the floor. In the staff room, she took off her jacket and used paper towels to dry it. Her coworker, Elena, came running in. "Mia, I saw what happened. That was awful. You should file a complaint." Mia shook her head. "No, it's not worth it. Some people see others as small, but that doesn't mean we are." Elena sighed. "You're too kind." Anyone else would have shouted. Mia smiled faintly. "And what would that change? I'd just lose my job. He'd forget by tomorrow. I'll save my energy for something that matters." She changed into a spare uniform and returned to work. The rest of the day passed slowly, but she kept moving, kept smiling. Even when Charles and his group left, laughing and leaving no tip, she didn't show anger. She simply said, "Thank you, have a nice day," as they walked out. When the restaurant closed that night, Mia stayed back to clean. The manager came to her. "Mia, you should take tomorrow off. What happened today was unfair. I'll speak to the owner." She shook her head again. "Thank you, sir, but I'll be fine. I've seen worse days." He sighed and nodded. "You're stronger than most people I know." After work, she walked home through the quiet city streets. Her brother called her phone. "Hey, sis, how was your day?" Mia hesitated. "Busy," she said softly. She didn't tell him what happened. She didn't want him to worry. At home, she opened her small laptop on the kitchen table. Beside her cup of tea lay a folder labeled Davis Consulting, her dream project. She had been working on it for 2 years, building client lists, designing presentations, and helping small businesses organize their finances. She didn't have investors or big offices, just faith and late-night hours. As she typed notes, a notification appeared on her email. It was from a large investment firm called Brookline Capital. The message said, "We are reaching out regarding a high-priority corporate merger project. Your name was recommended by Dr. Allen from Columbia University. We'd like to discuss an urgent consulting opportunity tomorrow morning." Mia read the email twice. She couldn't believe it. Dr. Allen had been her professor and mentor during her studies. He always said she had the mind of a strategist and the heart of a leader. She quickly replied with gratitude and confirmed her availability. That night, she didn't sleep much. She thought about the strange balance of life, how one moment can make you feel small, and the next moment can remind you of your worth. The next morning, she woke early, ironed her best blazer, and tied her hair neatly. She looked in the mirror and said quietly to herself, "You know who you are. No one can take that away." At 9, she walked into the tall glass building of Brookline Capital. The receptionist greeted her warmly and led her to the meeting room. Inside were several executives, including the senior partner, Mr. Lang. He stood and smiled. "Miss Davis, thank you for coming. Dr. Allen spoke very highly of you. We're finalizing a merger between two global companies. It's one of the biggest deals of the decade, worth $87 billion. We need someone detail-oriented and quick-thinking to coordinate the final process. Are you ready for something this big?" Mia took a breath and nodded. "I've been preparing for an opportunity like this my whole life, sir." Mr. Lang smiled. "Then let's begin." As they discussed schedules, numbers, and legal requirements, Mia listened carefully, took notes, and offered suggestions that impressed everyone. By the end of the meeting, they asked her to lead the final review before the signing ceremony the next day. When she stepped outside into the bright sunlight, she paused for a moment. The same world that had watched her humiliated yesterday was now giving her a chance to stand tall. She didn't know yet who the two merging companies were, only that this was the biggest step of her career. That evening, she prepared reports, revised contracts, and worked late into the night. She didn't feel tired. She felt alive. Somewhere across town, Charles Renford was sitting in his office, talking with his lawyers and boasting about the upcoming merger his company was trying to win. He had no idea that the quiet waitress he mocked would be the one sitting across from him tomorrow, the one holding the final documents to the deal he wanted so badly. The next morning was bright, and the sky over New York was clear. Mia stood by her window, sipping a cup of coffee. Her nerves danced, but she felt calm on the outside. The email from Brookline Capital had confirmed the final meeting for that day, the biggest day of her life. She carefully checked her documents one last time. Everything had to be perfect. She wore a cream-colored suit, simple but elegant, and tied her hair neatly behind her head. She looked professional, confident, and ready. Before leaving, she whispered a small prayer and smiled. "Today, we begin again." Meanwhile, across town, Charles Renford sat in his office, talking to his assistant. He looked excited. His company, Renford Holdings, was one of the final partners involved in the huge $87 billion merger. It was a deal that would make him even richer and give him more power in the market. He didn't care much about who else was involved. All he wanted was the signature and the press coverage that would follow. "This deal will make history," he told his assistant proudly. "Make sure the media knows I'll be there personally by 10 in the morning." Cars lined up outside the tall silver building of Brookline Capitol. News reporters were already standing near the glass doors, holding cameras and microphones. Inside the lobby, the air smelled of perfume, coffee, and fresh paper. Everyone looked busy and serious. Mia arrived early and went to the 25th floor. The meeting room was large, with a long glass table surrounded by leather chairs. On one side of the room, the city skyline glowed through tall windows. She placed her files on the table and arranged everything carefully. Her heart beat fast, but her hands didn't shake. She had worked hard to let fear take over. Now soon, the executives started arriving, men and women in suits, talking quietly, checking their phones, and smiling politely. One of them, Mr. Lang, greeted Mia warmly. "Good to see you again, Miss Davis. You lead the presentation. Just guide us through the final terms in the contract summary." "Yes, sir," she replied, keeping her tone calm. She took her seat at the head of the table. Unaware of one detail, the second company entering the deal was none other than Renford Holdings, Charles's company. He was running late, as usual, but his name was already printed on the document folder in front of her. When she noticed the name, her eyes paused for a second. She couldn't believe it at first. Renford Holdings, she whispered to herself. A faint memory flashed before her eyes. Orange juice dripping from her uniform, a man laughing. The quiet shame she had swallowed just 2 days ago. She took a deep breath and closed the folder gently. The past would not shake her. Not today. At exactly 11, the doors opened. Charles walked in, talking loudly with 2 other men. He was confident, smiling, acting like the king of the room. But when his eyes moved toward the head of the table, his words stopped in his throat. There she was, the same woman he had humiliated, but she wasn't wearing a waitress uniform now. She was wearing a tailored suit, sitting in the seat of authority, calm and professional, as if she had always belonged there. For a moment, he thought it was a trick of his mind. He blinked, then looked again. It was her. Mia met his eyes briefly and gave a polite nod. "Good morning, Mr. Renford." Her voice was steady, neither cold nor warm, just respectful. The other executives greeted him and invited him to sit. He sat slowly, still confused. His hands fidgeted on the table. He wanted to say something, maybe apologize, maybe pretend nothing had happened. But the weight of silence stopped him. Mia opened her file. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "We're here to finalize the details of the merger agreement between Renford Holdings and Haverstone Industries under the supervision of Brookline Capitol." Her tone was clear and professional. Every sentence she spoke was confident. She explained the structure of the agreement, the timeline, the financial terms, and the potential benefits. People listened closely. Even the senior partners nodded as she spoke. Charles watched her carefully. The same woman he thought of as just a waitress was now leading the meeting with complete control. Her presence filled the room, not because she spoke loudly, but because she spoke with purpose. At one point, a disagreement broke out between 2 executives over the distribution of shares. The voices grew tense. Mia calmly raised her hand. "Let's pause for a moment," she said. "I understand both sides, but we can find a balance. Let's look at the data again." She walked to the screen, opened her laptop, and displayed a simple chart she had prepared the night before. The numbers made perfect sense. The room quieted down. One executive smiled and said, "That's very clear, Miss Davis." "Thank you." Charles sat there, feeling smaller with every minute. His pride melted away quietly as he realized how wrong he had been. The woman he had mocked had not only forgiven him silently, but had surpassed him completely. She didn't use anger. She used intelligence, grace, and dignity. After 3 hours of discussion, all parties agreed on the final document. Mr. Lang turned to Mia. "Miss Davis, Would you please hand out the contracts for signing? She stood up and walked gracefully around the table, handing each folder to the participants. When she reached Charles, she placed the folder gently in front of him. Your copy, sir, she said. Her calm tone made him feel even more ashamed. He looked up at her and tried to speak, but no words came. Finally, he whispered, Miss Davis, about that day. She interrupted softly, not unkindly. Let's focus on the deal today, Mr. Renford. The past is already done. He nodded quickly and lowered his eyes. When the last signature was made, Mr. Lang smiled broadly. Congratulations, everyone. The deal is complete, $87 billion combined. History has just been made. Applause filled the room. Reporters outside were called in for photos. Cameras flashed as executives shook hands. Mia stood quietly near the window, watching the sunlight dance on the skyscrapers. She didn't step forward for the cameras. She didn't chase the spotlight. But one reporter noticed her and asked Mr. Lang, Who's that young woman? She seems important. Mr. Lang smiled proudly. That's Mia Davis, the lead consultant who guided us through every step. This deal wouldn't have happened without her. The reporter's eyes widened. Incredible. We'll include her in the story. By evening, online headlines read, Young Black Consultant leads $87 billion corporate merger. The woman who surprised Wall Street with her calm genius. Charles saw the news later that night. His name was mentioned, but not with the same glory. Mia's story had captured everyone's heart, not because of money, but because of her grace. He sat alone in his office, the city lights shining through the window, and whispered to himself, I was wrong about her. I was wrong about everything. The next morning, he sent flowers to the Brookline Capitol office with a note to Miss Davis. I was unkind when I should have been respectful. Thank you for showing what true strength looks like. Charles Renford. Mia received the flowers during a meeting. She read the note, smiled faintly, and placed it aside. She wasn't angry anymore. She had already forgiven him long before he apologized. That evening, when she returned home, her brother Michael was waiting. I saw you on the news, he said excitedly. Everyone's talking about you. She laughed softly. It's just one day, Michael. There's still more work to do. But you did it, he said proudly. You proved them wrong. Mia hugged him. I didn't want to prove anyone wrong. I just wanted to prove to myself that no one can decide my worth. Later that night, she sat by her small window again, watching the city lights blink like stars. She thought about the restaurant, the spilled juice, the laughter, the humiliation. It all seemed so small now. What mattered was how she had handled it, with quiet strength and respect. Her phone buzzed. It was an email from Brookline Capital, offering her a permanent position as senior consultant. She smiled, tears forming in her eyes. We made it, she whispered to herself, somewhere across the city, in a corner office. Charles looked at the same night sky, feeling humbled. He had learned something money could never teach, that dignity cannot be bought, and respect must be earned. The world moved on. But the story of that one day, when a millionaire poured juice on a waitress who later signed an $87 billion deal, became a quiet legend among business circles. People repeated it as a reminder that you should never look down on anyone, because you never know who they really are or who they will become. Mia never looked for revenge. Her victory was silent, graceful, and complete. And as she closed her eyes that night, she whispered again the same words she told herself every morning: stay kind, stay strong, and let your work speak louder than their words.